Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to another episode of the Steelers preview. This is Behind the Steel Curtain co-editor Dave Schofield coming at you tonight as host with our wonderful podcast producer, Brian Anthony Davis. Brian, how is that lovely smiling face doing tonight?
The double P is in the house and feeling good. I got to tell you, 31 days until kickoff, and I'm feeling good.
Days till kickoff.
I'm loving it. I mean, I know camp officially opens coming up on Monday, but you know what? For me, I feel like they're already in camp. And I love what I'm hearing out of, I wanted to say Latrobe, but of course I'm not going to do that. I love what I'm hearing out of Heinz Field so far. I just have, as the Eagles, not the Philadelphia Eagles, but as the Glenn Fry, Don Henley, and the such Eagles would say, I've got a peaceful, easy feeling about the Pittsburgh Steelers for 2020.
There you go. It won't let you down. Hopefully they won't let you down. You have that peaceful,
nice.
You like that?
I like that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Take it to the limit, Dave.
You know what? I got in trouble Tuesday night. You probably didn't catch the show because I pulled you. And we were talking about Joe Hayden. You know, there's more about Joe Hayden in the news. We'll mention that here shortly. But I was talking about Joe Hayden when he became available. That I said I thought he was going to go west. And then I had to bust into lyric. I didn't sing it. I just stated it. Ultimately getting to the name of the song, "The King of Wishful Thinking."
Yep.
So that's what I thought when Joe Hayden was available, and boom, the Steelers got him. So anyway,
what movie was that from? What movie was King of Wishful Thinking from?
Oh,
great song, by the way.
Yes,
30 years old. I'll get over.
See, I always get that confused because didn't they also do another song that was in the movie Twins?
This was not the same group. Twins.
I know, but I'm just saying. But didn't they have a song?
I'm not sure. They had a song called "We Close Our Eyes." They were pretty good. I know we're getting away from it, but Pretty Woman.
Oh, never seen it because I don't care. All right. So
my
anyway.
wife loves it, but I'm not. I can get into the whole Pretty Woman thing. It's like, at the end of the day, the guy's dating a prostitute.
Well, yeah, we got some things to bring up here. First of all, we got Mark Davison coming in from down under. Okay. You know what? I might have to talk about an Australian accent later on.
Try another shrimp on the bobby. Is it getting better?
It's getting a little bit better. But he said, "Good day, mates." He says, I can't keep up with all these shows. You know what, Mark? I hope that's the case. Especially when you're talking about an audio form, because for those of you that don't know, we are giving you roughly 30-minute audio-only morning shows each weekday morning, Monday to Friday. Jeff Hartman has 3 of them. I was going to say the reason it's just Brian and I tonight is because after 1 week we had enough of Jeff, so we kicked him with the curb already. No, that is not true at all. That is not true at all. Jeff is on vacation this week, and he is still doing the written word. He is still doing the morning audio shows, and we're
working
like,
his tail off on vacation.
You are on vacation. You got to stop working your tail off. You've got to at least not do something. So this is the one thing Jeff isn't doing is this show tonight. That was, that had a hard schedule and on video and everything else. We said, you got to do that. But Mark says he can't keep up with all these shows. I hope that's a good thing. I hope that's a good thing because so many times people are like, I wish we had more shows. I wish we had more content. Well, we are doing all that we can to give you content. What would you like to say about that, Mr. PP in the house, Mr. Podcast producer?
Well, here's the thing. We were sitting there on Jeff's porch when we got the news that he was coming back. We had the famous BTSC summit, and we're talking, and we're like, you know what? We could just leave things the way it is and hope the season starts and things get better, or we could just up the ante. Let's double the content. And then wait a second. One man in the corner said, boys, and this wasn't me. It was one. Davidson Schofield said, boys, let's triple the content.
Let's triple it.
Let's have 3 shows a day. Well, and I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? And then I'm like, all right, let's try it. Next thing you know, boom.
There we go. So now for those of you watching right now live on YouTube or watching later on YouTube, the whole reason, I've explained this a bunch of times. I feel like I need to stop explaining it, but there's always someone else trickling in saying, why are you guys doing this? What we're doing is we are giving you the hour long, 45 minute to an hour long YouTube show, which is basically our double show. But we're splitting that in two for podcast form, because I know some people are like, I have no problem listening to an hour long podcast. Well, some people do. And for those that like the hour long podcast, guess what? You got one, and then you got the next one right there available. Right there, back to back, you got them. For those that like the half hour podcast that you like to split up throughout the day, you've got the 30 minutes, 25 to 30 minutes, and then you come back for the second half whenever available. And a lot of people have said that's what they would prefer. So we're trying to give the people what they want. We're not cutting down on the YouTube shows for those of you that are here. And hopefully this is working out for the best for everybody. We love it, man. We got more people saying, Sean saying, that's not a knife.
That's a knife.
Okay,
gosh, I can't
that was terrible, Brian.
I'm working on my Vegemite sandwiches. But hey, you know what? Back to what you're saying. A lot of people have a half-hour commute to work.
Yeah,
that's perfect.
That's the average. 25
and then
because
if you start a show, you're like, okay, I'll get to it on my way home, and sometimes you don't because there's more content and there's more things.
And if something happens where it resets and it doesn't save where you left off, and then you try to remember, it's just a royal pain. We're just trying to help out.
There you go. We're for the people. Now, one comment that I got the other day, I believe it was on the Tales from 2 a.m. the other day, and they might even be on here. I just can't remember who said it, and it was a brilliant comment. He's like, "You guys are killing me with all this new content. I'm listening to too much BTSC. I have no time to download porn." And I'm like, dude,
you told me that. And I think I remember who you said it was, but I don't want to say it wrong, because that's a comment you don't want to miss. You do not want to misquote, misattribute that quote.
Yeah, I'm not going to blame that on Kathy.
Don't blame it on Kathy. Wes says, as a trucker, I need to take 30-minute break every 8 hours. I really appreciate the change. So that's someone who it works out well for. So we were trying to get feedback from people, and that's why. One last thing about the Australian accent, because we got to get to some Steelers stuff. The only way I can really do it, not the only way, but my best practice of an Australian accent is for my son who's 4, who's about to turn 5 later this month. There's one book that has multiple characters, and every character has to have a different voice. So one of them has an Australian accent. So that's the octopus. The octopus has the Australian accent. So if you ever read The Pow Pow Fish to your child and you see what the octopus says, do it in Australian accent. It's much better. So
let's help me out with this emoji real quick, Dave, because I'm
not sure about that, but
the silence of the lambs emoji?
That's Kathy for it. It's a super big grin.
Okay.
So it's one of those things that maybe that wasn't a quote that was attributed to her, but maybe it applies. Who knows? Maybe that's what she meant. I don't know. Kathy, that doesn't matter. You're still our girl no matter what. Let's talk about some stuff going on with the Steelers. People are like, what am I tuning into? Pittsburgh Steelers had one roster move today because they now have no more players on the reserve / COVID-19 list. Jalen Samuels was activated today. It was technically it was the 11th day, but in the morning of the 11th day since he went on. So that means everything's fine and dandy.
Nice.
Some people imply that means he actually tested positive. Doesn't matter if he tested positive or not. All we know is that we want to see a healthy player coming back to the Steelers. So he came back, and what the Steelers did is they released someone that I actually thought they would release to cut down to the 80 players when I did my prediction, but it came now. The Steelers are now down to one fullback on the roster. They released their other fullback, Spencer Nye, who was an undrafted rookie free agent. So they're going with Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry. I wish they were going with Derrick Henry.
Great
Derek Watt. Derek Watt.
Gosh, I missed that on the website.
Yeah, that would have been a big signing. So Derek Watt, as we all know, is going to be the fullback this year. And so that was one move. And anything jump out at you about that bad that we need to talk about, or is the announcement good enough?
Now, you know what, that announcement is good enough because that they are thrilled with Derek Watt, and this is probably a situation where they're going to have a fullback on the practice squad, and just in case something happens.
Well, they don't have any other one on the roster. So
that changes.
I honestly, I was in the midst of doing my 53-man / 16-man practice squad projection that will be coming out sometime before the Steelers' first padded practice Monday. It might not be till Monday morning because Jeff and I are working on it together. I was thinking about putting the fullback on there just to have one. But then I thought, if they're really in a bind, perhaps one, Trey Edmonds, who filled in some at fullback last year, ends up on the practice squad because I don't really see him making the 53. But with them being able to have 6 players at least that with unlimited accrued seasons can be on the practice squad this year, that means someone like Edmonds could be hanging around without having to get that roster spot.
And they want to keep him around.
Yeah.
In some capacity.
Yeah, because I mean, he technically, I'm fairly certain under normal circumstances, he was out of practice squad eligibility. So this is a year that they could keep someone like that around. But they've got some interesting decisions to make with that. We'll see how this works. We're less than a month away from finding out because we're going to have some padded practices on Monday. Coach Tallman spoke today. And one of the things, it's funny, he refused to talk about any players dealing with the COVID list. And then it wasn't even 10 minutes after his time with the media was done, they made the announcement that Jalen Samuels was off. So that was pretty funny. But that means, because he said other than people on the COVID list, everybody was healthy for practice Monday. They have everyone healthy and ready to participate in practice on Monday. He says he hopes to have it looking like a regular training camp practice. That means we should be hearing about 7 shots. That means we should hopefully maybe be hearing about some backs on backers drills and things of that sort. Now, we're not going to get the same reporting just because of the situation, but we'll be hearing something. The Steelers.com is trying to offer as much coverage as they can, which of course we're going to try to give you as much coverage as we can. Before we go on to the topic there, Brian, let's talk a little bit. Let's go back to that whole Joe Hayden subject. I know we have something on the website coming out tomorrow about that whole thing with, it was brought up earlier in the live chat about the whole thing with, apparently it was believed it was Joe Hayden, although he has denied it, as has his agent, sent Adam Pac-Man Jones a whole stack of signed Joe Hayden jerseys that he took exception to and lit on fire. Dude, that's hilarious. Yeah. I doubt they were really signed by Joe Hayden, but just imagine if someone had some Joe Hayden jerseys they found somewhere and just said, I'm just going to sign them myself like it's me, and I'm going to send these to someone that'll really, to really tick them off. And that was probably a good choice. That's got to be hilarious.
Why Pac-Man?
I don't, because he's a loose cannon.
Yeah,
he's irrelevant. That's true. So,
you would think he would send him to a receiver or send him to Antonio Brown.
Yeah, that would have been a good one.
Yeah, but and then setting him on fire. You know what I'm doing? I'm like, all right, I'm putting those things on eBay. Thanks for all the money coming into me. I'm not setting him on fire.
I don't know if he still needs the money to get him from eBay or not.
But now that he's got hot jerseys because they were probably stolen. Now they're hot jerseys because they're on fire. Do you think there's a little Pac-Man fever going on?
I don't know, man. That's pretty lit.
So pretty like we are still uncool, Dave.
I wanted to bring this up because Miguel, whoa, that is one crazy picture that I now see large on YouTube. Asked the question, how many veterans are able to be in the practice squad? I think he meant on the practice squad. I just didn't read that properly. You did not listen to my audio only Stat Geek podcast that came out this morning because I laid this all out. I laid out the 53 versus 55 man roster. I laid out the practice squad and everything going on there. I did the game day inactives, the moving players up. I did all that, and then I did a breakdown of what the Steelers usually keep by position. Lots of great geeky numbers, but I will answer that here for you. The answer is 6. They're allowed to keep 6 players of unlimited accrued seasons. The answer that Wes and Brad gave of 4, the number 4 comes in with how many players they're allowed to protect on Tuesday of each week. because they can protect those players that they can't be picked up by someone else. So, to sign to their 53. Now, at the end of the game, at the end of the week, everyone's unprotected until Tuesday again. So that's just the way it works. So interesting stuff. If you really want some details into how all that goes, what do we got? What do we got to tell them to do, Brian? Go listen to Stat Geek. Go anywhere podcasts are available, and it's on there. Just look for the Behind the Steel Curtain Radio, and
they don't go away. If you want to go back to November 12th and hear the origins of Mr. 2 a.m.,
it's
you
there.
can do that. They do not go away. So check it out. Go listen to it. Have fun with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those audio shows are kind of fun. And you and Tony, good time with the retro show, wasn't it?
Oh, that's a blast. And we're doing another one. Yeah. Man, we have another one coming up. And I saw Wes's comment saying, hey, can you do something with old players from the 70s? Unknown players from the 70s? Of course we can. We probably will. But we're going back to another classic game, and we're going to the last day of the 1980s. Little wild card action with the Oilers. There you go.
Well, and as I said on my podcast as Steelers Stat Geek, you can see it on YouTube. My Twitter handle at Steelers Superfan Dad, which if you just add at gmail.com, well, it's not Steeler, STLR, Superfan Dad. Add at gmail.com. That's my email. I'm looking for Stat Geek questions. So if people were firing me questions, then that's just going to help have more stuff for those shows. So Brian, let's continue on our irreplaceable players, because tonight it's a smaller room.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know, they're kind of big, but just smaller in quantity. Let's talk some tight ends.
Big fish in a small pond. Is that what you're going to call it?
I don't know. I mean, those guys got to be, let's just say this. They're very closely built to offensive linemen.
Oh, yeah. First of all, I have always been a fan of the tight end, just because for me, you got a guy he's blocking, he's catching. If he's got H-back ability, that's even cooler. Yeah. That's just my favorite position. I like the blue collarness of a tight end that gets free and could rumble. I mean, so, that's my favorite. I know it's not a hybrid position, but it kind of is. I love it. I definitely love the tight end position, and I love how it's looking right now. But the question is, are we getting too excited, and should we curb our enthusiasm for the tight ends day?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because we've been burned before, haven't we, Brian?
Ladarius.
Yes, we've been burned before by the free agent signing of a tight end that was supposed to come in and really answer some questions. And unfortunately for Eric Ebron, that's going to be the concerns of Steelers Nation up until there aren't. If he's on the field and ready to go in week one, that right there, because Green, was he on PUP for the first half of the season?
No, the last 6 games of last season.
I know he went on IR at the end, but I thought he was on PUP where he couldn't even practice or do anything for the first half of that season because he still wasn't clear with concussions.
Oh, we're talking about Ladarius.
Yeah, Ladarius Green. Yeah.
Oh man, no. I mean, I think we saw him in two games, if I'm not mistaken, and it was a shame because the guy had all the talent in the world. I feel like he robbed the Steelers, but I also feel the Steelers didn't do due diligence in looking into his history. Somebody dropped the ball somewhere there. I mean, I'm not sure how he passed a physical coming in. That wasn't COVID times when they had an opportunity. He actually, I guess he was active for 6 games.
Well,
but
what was going on was he also dealing where he had like an ankle injury
and then concussions.
But I think because it was explained as an ankle injury coming out of San Diego. I can actually say that because that was true at the time. Coming out of San Diego, it's almost like it's almost like the Chargers kind of masked what was really wrong with him. So then the Steelers were focused on the ankle and didn't do the due diligence necessarily with the concussion. And then all of a sudden he signed and everything, and boom, it's the concussion problem. Never played again.
It's not like it's a trade where you could send him back.
Yeah.
But here's something people don't realize how good he was when he was on the field. And
oh my goodness,
it's really hard to say.
Was it that Giants game or something he was really
Bengals
good?
game? I know he was really good against the Bengals, but it's really weird to see that he actually played in 6 games for the Steelers. He started 2.
Yeah.
He had 34 targets, 18 receptions, 304 yards in those 6 games. And he was averaging 16.9 yards per reception for a tight end. That's pretty good stuff.
When he was on the field, he did his thing. Got to bring up one thing real quick here from Portna that said Randy Grossman was the epitome of a Steelers tight end.
I loved Randy Grossman.
You know what? Why I really like Randy Grossman? He loved that helmet. I met him. We went over with Big Brosco, and I went over. I think it was the Rams game last year. Went over to the just in the fan zone, and he was someone you could meet. I kept the helmet on the whole time. He loved it. He was impressed. It was a hot day. He couldn't believe that I had it on the whole time. He wanted to know if I had air conditioning in there. He just went on and on about that helmet. He wanted a picture for himself of him with me in the helmet.
Here's the thing about Randy Grossman. I had a chance to meet him too, and it was a backstage situation at an autograph signing in Chantilly, Virginia. And it was one of those things where, I mean, you had guys like Lambert running around, Franco running around, Pete Rose was back there. I was taking balls to Pete Rose to have him sign that I given to take over, that somebody asked me to take over to him, and not as a fan, but say, hey, Pete, get these 100 balls next or whatever. And so Randy was kind of just like hanging around waiting to go out. And he was just like, he just wanted to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
He was that guy. And
he was a super nice guy.
Such a nice guy. And that's what you think of when you think of some of these athletes. And I don't want to say too much about that whole situation because
you got to save that for either a 2 a.m. story or a retro show.
Well, coming up on Sunday, I'm glad you said that, because on Sunday, the name of Tales from 2 a.m. is called Nice to Meet You. Now sign my crap.
I love it. Well, hey, you know what? We're talking about 2020. We need to get back on this right now, Brian. This is us getting off topic. But before we do, let's do this. We're going to roll into our break. We're going to be coming back with part 2 to where we really get into irreplaceable tight ends for the Steelers, what they're going to look at for tight ends this year, and are our expectations too high? So if you will just bear with us, we will be back right after this break. And we are back with the second part of the Steelers preview with Brian Anthony Davis, the podcast producer from BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. I am Dave Schofield, the co-editor. My other co-editor from BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, Jefferson Bartholomew Hartman, is not with us tonight as he's on vacation, but he will be back next week. So, Brian, let's get back into this. Let's get on topic. This is us talking. This is the problem with you and I. Get on topic. Yep. Are our expectations too high for the tight ends this year?
Yes. And here's the reason why. Now, it's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing why our expectations are high. But I want to talk about Eric Ebron first. Mm-hmm. He's a high-profile free agent signing. And he's a guy that had 66 receptions, 750 yards, and 13 touchdowns 2 seasons ago. He was a Pro Bowl selection, but if you go back then, T.Y. Hilton was kind of hurt a little bit. Andrew Luck was healthy, and he was his only receiver.
Yeah.
The situation now in Pittsburgh is you have another talented tight end in Vance McDonald, who we're going to talk about.
Yes.
And you have 4 or 5 receivers that are going to be targets of Ben Roethlisberger. So you're not going to expect 13 touchdowns out of this guy, but that's okay. If you look at the Steelers, who's the guy who we always talk about when we talk about tight ends with the Steelers? It's Heath Miller. What is his highest number as far as touchdowns? It's 8.
Which is the franchise record.
Yes.
8 touchdowns. Heath Miller in, you'd probably know the year.
2012.
Was it 12?
Okay. It was 12. And he also had 866 yards. Now, one thing that you look at here is when you combined Jesse James and Vance McDonald in 2017, they were a 1,000-yard receiver together. And it seems like Pittsburgh could do better than worrying about having one superstar, but having two combined players to get the numbers of a George Kittle or a Travis Kelce, who just got paid big time in the last couple of days. But, when you're looking at that, these guys aren't playing for numbers. We talked about this when we talked about the receivers. There's a lot of balls that need to be going around. Juju, you don't expect 1,400 yards out of Juju. You expect maybe 1,100 at the most, because other guys need their balls too. So this is a situation where you have a lot of guys. They're
all young guys. I think they all need them.
Yeah. As long as those balls aren't dropping.
Yeah.
But the one thing you're looking at, it's kind of like you have a mama dog, and she's got 6 to 7 puppies. They all need fed.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So you don't expect. Somebody in the live chat said, I hope Ebron goes off. I hope he goes off too.
Yeah.
But you kind of want these guys to be interchangeable. And if you get 1,000-yard receiver out of two guys and you break franchise records, but you're not breaking franchise records, but the position does, then you're golden.
Yeah. And we talked about this with wide receivers before. Did the Steelers have to have a 1,000-yard wide receiver? No, just imagine if they have 5 guys with 800 yards. So does it really matter how it's divvied up? And that's kind of what your point is when it comes to Eric Ebron and Vance McDonald. We don't need one of them to absolutely go off. Here's what might happen. It might be that you get Ebron going off for several games, or you get Vance McDonald going off for several games. I mean, I'll take that Tampa Bay game over, I'll take a repeat of that for sure. And then, then you had games like Seattle last year where he had 2 touchdowns. So it doesn't, sometimes having the threat from multiple people will allow one to go off. And then think about when the Steelers had played Seattle 4 years prior, when they really went on shutting down Mr. 3rd and 5th, who had 200 and some yards receiving that game. It's
pretty amazing.
That was Marcus Wheaton.
Yep.
So what's nice is when you have multiple options, if they focus, if a team comes in and says, we are not going to let Eric Ebron kill us in the red zone, then you know what you do? You kill him with somebody else.
Absolutely.
That's what you do.
And this is the year that they can do that.
Yeah.
The one thing that you've got to look at the most here, Dave, and for everybody, is this fact that you also have a heck of an injury history with Eric Ebron and Vance McDonald.
Yes.
And that could make things go off the rails in a quick hurry.
Yeah.
And when they're preparing to have a 2-headed monster at tight end, and next thing you know, Zach Gentry's in there, and who knows? He's a big guy. He's a project. He was drafted as a project, but he might have to have a prominent position. Mm-hmm. And do you want to deal with that?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I'm going to tease this a little bit. Doing my projected 53-man roster, I obviously had to change something from the last time I did it. So I'm like, what am I going to do? I still want to keep 4 running backs. Where are the Steelers going to squeeze another player off of the 53? I went creative this time. And because of the new practice squad rules, I went with, let's only keep 2 tight ends. Let's only keep 2 tight ends on the active roster and 2 on the practice squad.
And you
could pull up if you need to. Because I don't think anyone's going to be going out to grab Zach Gentry, not even seeing if he's progressed from last year. I mean, he had 1 catch for 4 yards last year. Unless they're decimated at tight end. So I just threw that out there as a possibility. Because if the Steelers are going to run a quote unquote 3 tight end set, it's going to be on a run play, and they're going to have their jumbo tight end that's an extra offensive lineman. So yeah, that's what I said, Brad, is I'm like, if you keep 2 tight ends, you're keeping a 4th running back. Yes, that was the key. Meaning other than Derek Watt, not because I had fullback is separate. So that's the whole reason I did it, is trying to squeeze somewhere off. Last time I did it, where I kept one less offensive lineman, Just wanted to look at a different angle. But if the Steelers, keep less guys in one position, then they're going to keep even more on that practice squad. But I'm going to pull a Roddy Piper on you. Just when you think you have the answers, I'm going to change the question.
Hey, that's a tagline to a show.
I know.
PSC, isn't it?
I know. And rather than ask the question of, do the Steelers have an irreplaceable tight end on the roster, I'm going to ask you this question. Of the two main tight ends for the Steelers, which one is the most irreplaceable? Or is it a combination thing?
Wow. So for me, I really think that this year, the irreplaceable guy might be Eric Ebron, just because of what he is being brought in for. Because right now, he has been brought in to replace a guy that they think that they have one more year out of. I mean, no more years out of. This is his swan song, possibly, for Vance McDonald. So he has been brought in on a 2-year deal to cover that, with them expecting Vance McDonald to be possibly gone. In fact, I was looking at an article on Bleacher Report. I don't know who put it out, and they put all 32 teams. And the question was, who's the one guy with the most likelihood to be traded for each team? And of course, I knew they were going to go with Bud Dupree. But I'm also thinking, if they see something they like out of one of these other guys in camp, and they know they're going to lose Vance McDonald, and they think they can get a nice draft pick out of him. When I say nice draft pick, I'm thinking a 4th rounder. Maybe they could sneak a 3rd. I doubt it. I don't know. But I could also see him being a candidate to be traded. I doubt it, but he's one of your top 2 guys to be traded. So I think Vance McDonald is, as talented as I think he is, with a salary cap issues, they probably think he is on his way out the door, and this is his last go around here. So that's why Eric Ebron is your irreplaceable Steeler for this year.
And this is fantastic, because I get to give my answer anyway, just to disagree with you. It's not just to disagree with you. This was my answer in the first place, and that is Vance McDonald. And the reason I think it's Vance McDonald is because he is a more complete tight end, meaning when it comes to blocking. Eric Ebron is not known for his blocking. So if you lose Vance McDonald and you're going to go with Ebron as the guy you have out there all the time, when you take him off the field to put in someone else, it's you're not going to get the same threat. Because even if it's Zach Gentry is your next tight end, if you take Ebron out in place of Gentry, you're probably, tipping that you're going to run more. And if you're going to do that, you might as well bring in the jumbo lineman, if you know what I mean. Because Eric Ebron, you're just not going to get quite as much out of him. Because Vance is more complete in that way, I'm going to say he's going to be the one that's more irreplaceable. Hey, what do you know? Jeffrey Benedict, one of our fellow podcasters, said, if Vance goes down, you don't have Ebron in line blocking for RBs. If Ebron goes down, you play Chase Claypool more.
Okay.
I can see it if Claypool's ready, which hopefully he will be. So that's the reason I went with Vance McDonald, is because we're talking about if the standard is the standard when it comes to tight end, and that standard is Heath Miller. What made Heath Miller so great is that he was a complete tight end.
Complete.
He was the complete tight end. And to me, of the two, I do think Ebron is more of the passing threat weapon. Absolutely. But Vance McDonald is the more complete tight end. And if you don't have a complete tight end, then to go along with that passing threat, you could be in trouble. Because notice, even when Ebron was in Indy, when he really broke out they had another tight end too.
Yeah, Clark. Jack Doyle.
Yeah, Dallas Clark. What I'm saying, he was there too. Jack Doyle. That's what I meant to say. Yeah, that was before him. I bet Jack Doyle.
John Mackey. Why don't you throw in that if you're going Colts tight end?
I thought threw the wrong tight end out there. Okay, so that's why I would go there. But honestly, it's a great question, and I'm not saying one's right over the other. I'm really not, but I could see the argument either way. It's what you're looking at. Are you looking at the Steelers being a more balanced team when it comes to run and pass, or are you looking at them being that purely pass weapon, great target in the red zone? It's tricky, but it's still funny. I still think people are like, yeah, Gentry will get poached by someone. You've got to understand it's going to be much easier, in my opinion, to get players on the practice squad this year than ever before.
Absolutely.
Because there's no preseason. There's no preseason to see what everyone has. The only way you could evaluate players is in practice. So, for example, if they're like, well, all we saw from Gentry last year was one catch for 4 yards. Didn't see him in the preseason. Yeah, he's big, but do we really want to save a 53-man roster spot for this guy that we have no idea about when the Steelers would rather just run with 2 tight ends rather than keep him? That's a big gamble for a team. Don't know if they could or if they couldn't. So I'm not saying that they won't keep 3 tight ends. I had to find something somewhere, and that seemed to be a good spot for the time, rather than do an offensive line again.
And that's not bad.
Mm-hmm. So now, in all, remember, there's 5 tight ends on the roster right now, and you can name them, correct?
Yeah, Kevin Rader, Dax Raymond, and Zach Gentry.
Zach Gentry, along with McDonald and Ebron. Very good, Mr. Brian Anthony Davis. You did your homework for tonight.
Doing some homework.
So, yes. So, and what's interesting is that when Jeffrey brought that up is Chase Claypool might be, even right off the bat, we'll have to see, could be an option to do similar things receiving wise that Eric Ebron does. So that would be an interesting option if there's a problem there. The biggest thing is let's keep them both healthy, right? That's the key thing. Because
that's what we're really looking at here.
Yeah.
But that's where you've got to, and I got to quote Lance Williams, who's in the live chat now.
I know. I just saw that. I wanted to give him a shout out.
I've got to quote Lance because he just did a shout out to my title and Larry David. This is where you've got to curb your enthusiasm and don't go crazy thinking that they are going to go nuts, because they have the potential to go off. But we've seen that injury bug hit these guys. We saw it last year. And this is what makes one of these guys irreplaceable, because we saw it with Nick Vannett being your only guy last year for a game.
Yeah.
And he just, it was like basically like the defense was on a power play the entire time, because you knew he was blocking and that's it. You knew he was not going to be an offensive option, because when you bring a tight end in that late in the game, and when I say in the game, that's after week 2 or so, or week 3, they're not getting acclimated, and he did not get acclimated.
Yeah. Some people pick it up quick. Some people don't. Minkah Fitzpatrick, he jumped on that moving train and he was ready to go. So,
yeah, but you know what? It's easier to come in as a safety and jump in on that moving train.
Yep. So anything else you want to say about tight ends here, Brian, before we start doing a little bit of trivia?
So you know what? It is going to be very interesting. And remember, just don't worry about these guys breaking the ceiling. They don't have to break individual records. This is a team. This is the one year that they are so loaded with pass catchers all the way around. And we talked about this earlier. Let these guys do it together and get that 1,000 yards and not worry about it. If they're 500 and 500 with 50 balls a piece, that's 100,000. That's what you're looking for every single time. But there's going to be games where they don't show up. They're on the field and they're doing their job, but they're not showing up because there's not a lot of balls to go around.
Yeah. Yeah. Does it really matter the number on the jersey or the name on the back? So I just still can't believe the live chat is so in love with a 5th round pick. What generally has happened with Steelers 5th round picks? What happened with the previous one? 1 year on the active roster, next year on the practice squad. It's kind of their formula. So I was just going by the Steelers formula. So
could I do something real quick?
I still think you could make it. I'm just saying they got to do something to try to get that extra. If you had to pick between, I'm going to ask you this question. If you had to pick between Zach Gentry, Jalen Samuels, or Wendell Smallwood, who would you pick on the roster? You can only pick one out of those 3.
I'm kind of in love with Smallwood right now, actually.
I mean,
but
Gentry's the third option there, unless you want to like skimp on an offensive lineman or another position.
Yeah, I don't want to get rid of Gentry, but I think you could stash him. You definitely could.
Yeah.
I want to bring
I was just looking someone who could be stashed. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's perfect. So I agree with you. And a lot of people disagree with you. Donald disagrees with you. And hey, I'm going to bring up Jovman because he's disagreeing with me, and I have no problem.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm wrong a lot. I agree.
We love being wrong, don't we?
Yeah. I mean, I'm used to being wrong. Ask my wife. But he says, I believe Vannett might have been worth something if Ben wasn't injured. No, I still think that was a good trade. Bringing him in, that was fine. But it was a situation where the reason he was not going to be a pass catcher, bringing him in that late, it just wasn't going to happen.
Especially with the young quarterbacks, yeah.
And even with Ben, if Ben was there, how long did it take Vance McDonald to settle in when he came right before the fourth preseason game and did not play in that fourth preseason game in 2017? Now he and Ben towards the end of that 2017 season, and especially in that wild card game, that first round game against Jacksonville, he lit it up. I mean, he had over 10 catches. They were together. They were a good combination. Yeah. Vannett could have reached there, but what I'm saying, there's nothing wrong with bringing Vannett in. It's just like he was not the guy to be your primary pass catcher.
That's what he was brought in to be.
That's like putting Matt Spaeth in the starting role and saying he's your pass catcher.
Yeah, that
because you're not really having the primary offense.
Yep.
He's gonna do something for you. He's gonna catch balls and help you, but that's more of a surprise. That's more of a, hey, we caught you napping with this tight end.
And it's so crazy because people are like, oh, we could have had that 5th round pick instead of Vannett. You know what the Steelers did? The Steelers did exactly what everyone was crying for in the preseason. We need to trade Dobbs for a tight end. We need to trade Dobbs for a tight end. That's what they did. They got a 5th round pick for Dobbs. Now, it was a different 5th round pick that they traded because they traded both their 5th round picks. So it didn't really matter which one it was, but they turned around and traded a 5th round pick to get Vannett. So in essence, all but traded Dobbs for Vannett, which is what people wanted. At least get something for Dobbs and try to get another tight end. So he filled a role there, but like you said, he was not brought in to be that number one guy that's going to go, have 8 or 10 targets in a game. That's just not what he was meant to do.
He could be valuable, but to your point, that's not why he's brought in.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. I'm telling you, that tight end position, it's going to come down to injuries. It really is. Can they stay healthy? And that's the NFL. That's every team every year. That a lot of times it's the healthiest teams or the teams that can overcome those injuries that end up playing a lot more games.
I agree.
So Brian,
yo,
you ready for some trivia?
I am.
Yours is tight end related. Mine isn't. So do you want to do yours first?
Trivia? Yeah. Sorry for that dig. I just threw in about your 17-minute trivia.
Oh.
But
I ignored you. Seattle has 2 losses.
This is actually a very easy one.
Okay.
So since 1976, the Pittsburgh Steelers have selected tight ends 4 times with the number one pick.
No, the first round pick.
The first round pick.
Okay.
Their number one pick, excuse me.
Yes.
I do that all the time. I was trying to say first overall pick. No, they've never done that. With their number one pick, who were they?
So 76. Okay. Well, I can tell you for sure that it was everyone's favorite, Heath Miller.
Yeah.
Okay. We have Mark Bruner.
By the way,
I didn't even realize that's what you were wearing.
I am wearing a Mark Bruner jersey. Let me, if you can see that. Very rare. I forgot I had it. I just found it 2 minutes before the show. I'm like, I'm putting this on.
Tight end. What's now we're talking first round picks. Eric Green.
Yes.
And since you said since 76, that means we got to go back. So this is the one I'm going to screw up. Was it I don't know. Was it Cunningham?
It was the late Benny Cunningham.
All right, I got it.
And when you're talking
So-
Randy Grossman, it was Randy Grossman and Benny Cunningham
Mhm.
did a pretty good job of being that two-headed monster that I'm talking about with Vance McDonald and Eric Ebron. They were pretty good in that role.
Yes, they were.
No Jay Reamer's jersey bad, says Donald Nolan.
Yeah.
I would have gotten one. I would have worn a Reamersma.
Well, Donald also wanted to know what other tight end they're going to keep on the practice squad. I'm like, Donald, I got to leave something for the article. You're just going to have to check out behindthesteelcurtain.com and get that article there. I can't be giving up all the secrets at one time, but I did give up that was my crazy talk. That I'm like, let's find a different spot where they could get an extra running back this time. I had already done offensive line, and I wasn't sure if I was going to go wide receiver. Next time I'll probably do a different one. I'll go back to keeping 3 tight ends, just to give some different stuff. Are you ready for my trivia?
Oh, yes, I am. I cannot.
Mine's going to be easy for you. Mine's actually running back related because I was doing this for an article where I looked up something and I threw it in the article. So you probably have no idea what I'm talking about because you don't read my articles. And that was
not a team player.
You're not a team player. Since the merger, post-merger, the Steelers, I'll say this, Benny Snell Jr. is the 6th Steelers running back who, as a rookie, who had more than 100 rushing attempts, had triple-digit rushing attempts in his rookie season. He was the 6th one. Can you name the other 5?
Okay. Let's since the merger, of course, we've got to go with Franco Harris.
Franco Harris, that is correct.
And I'm going to go. No, you can't go Rashard Mendenhall because he got hurt.
That's correct.
In week 4.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and take a look at. I'm probably wrong on this one, but let me go out on a limb because he played a good bit in that 1990 season. Could I say Barry Foster?
It was not Barry Foster.
Okay.
Barry Foster had, where is it? He had 36 attempts that season. Okay. 36 rushing attempts.
So we are talking rookies here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to try with Amos Zaraway.
It was not Amos Zaraway. It was not famous Amos.
I am getting my tail kicked.
I got to try to find him on here. Where was he?
Walter.
Oh, wait, there he is. 18 attempts his rookie year.
Walter Abercrombie. No.
Man, I thought this was an easy one, Brian. No,
Frankie
Walter Abercrombie. Walter Abercrombie had 21 attempts.
Okay.
So you've got Franco Harris.
Did I say Le'Veon Bell?
You did not say Le'Veon Bell. He had 244 attempts.
Yeah,
the most ever of a rookie. Okay. So you got 3 left.
Byron. Bam Morris.
198 attempts. 2 left. One should be easy. The other, not so much.
Oh, Timmy Worley.
Tim Worley. That should have been an easy one because they had 2 first-round picks that year. You like to talk about that all the time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm still mad about that.
If you can't get the last one, I'll give you the year. 1984.
Rich Ehrenberg.
In the 9th round, 247th selection, Rich Ehrenberg had 115 attempts for 405 yards.
He was in the 9th round, and they took another running back in the 12th round that year by the name of Elton Veals. So
yes, Elton Veals. He had, you ready? He had 31 attempts for 87 yards.
Wow, that's a lot more than I would figure. But Tony and I just watched the Broncos game, so Ehrenberg was one of my guys and he got a lot of attention.
Yep.
So that's really cool. Rich Ehrenberg.
Yep. And as you know, the most attempts was by Le'Veon Bell. The most yards, only Steelers rookie to ever rush. Well, since the merger, because I stopped there because who wants to go that far back?
Franco.
Only Steelers, to have over 1,000 yards as a rookie was Franco Harris. So there we go.
Incredible. What a great question. I like it.
Yeah, that
made me think.
Yeah, made you think. You were trying to go a little bit too obscure to start and everything. That you almost missed the obvious one and Mr. Butt Naked Get Robbed.
I almost busted out a Sidney Thornton and a Greg Hawthorne.
Let's see. Greg Hawthorne. You ready for that? 28 carries, 123 yards.
Okay.
So,
well, he didn't have to because he was a number 1 draft pick in 1979. And you had Blyer and you had Sidney Thornton was still there and you had Franco Harris. And so he didn't really get a lot of carries. You had Rick Moser there too.
Yeah, do you want a follow-up question?
Yeah, hit me.
Here's one. How about rookie running backs for the Steelers since the merger? There's only 5 of them that had more than 2 touchdowns, more than 2 rushing touchdowns in a season.
Okay. Are there any that aren't on this list?
Yes, there's one that's not on this list. So could you get the 4 that were on the list?
Well, of course, Levy. Lev Bell.
8.
We're definitely going to say Tim Worley.
Tim Worley had 5. He was 4th on the list.
And Franco, of course.
Franco had 10.
And the one that was on my head that I was it's on my head and I just can't, I didn't write down who we had. So Bam.
Yeah. Bam had 7. There's only one other Steelers rookie that had more than 2 rushing touchdowns as a rookie.
Gary Russell.
No, it is not Gary Russell. You ready?
Frank Summers.
Your hint is maybe, next time you go to the grocery store, see if you can find him.
Merrill Hodge?
No, come on. You've never run into him at the grocery store?
Oh gosh,
in our town?
Collier.
Mike Collier. Mike Collier had 3 touchdowns as a rookie in 1975. He was.
I wasn't. I thought maybe like you're. Yeah, it was a name like Jack Ham. Of course,
no.
But,
no, it was no grocery store. No, because Mike Collier actually, we've my son has worn his Super Bowl ring. He put it on. I told my son, that's great, that's fine. Next time you wear a Super Bowl ring, you need to earn it yourself. What a great thing to say at the time he was 7.
Right. I wore all 4 of Blyer's rings on my finger.
Oh, did
I lost the picture. Yeah, I've got one with my dad wearing it, but I lost the picture of me doing it.
That's great. So, well, Brian, we're not going to do either or. It's not the same without Jeff. We're going to save it for next week. We're going to wrap it up here tonight. Anything else you got to say for you want to do the podcast rundown?
Yeah. So coming up tomorrow, you guys have been asking for this. And everybody loves the Canadian Wonder, the kid and he told me this yesterday. He was apologizing to me yesterday about something else again. I'm like, will you stop apologizing? He's like, I'm Canadian. It's in my nature. I wake up in the morning.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Because I wake up in the morning every day. I pray to Wayne Gretzky and then I do my 10 apologies. And I'm like, that is the funniest thing I've ever heard. But so everybody's been saying, let's have the live mic. Let's have a solo Mike Beck show. And we've got the solo Mike Beck show coming up again, another edition of the live mic. And the live mic was around before. It had Tuzar Skipper on it before. Yeah. It had he had Chase Claypool. He's had some Steeler fans, but this is a show that he is going to be doing a YouTube show again, and it's going to be pretty exciting. Then on Saturday, one of the fan favorites here at BTSC is one Anthony Defio, which everybody loves Tony. And I was telling him the other day, because he won't believe he has no ego whatsoever. People don't understand that about Tony. He has absolutely no ego. And I'm like, the live chat, Tony, they would stab somebody in the throat for you. He's like, what? I'm like, yes, they love you, Tony. And I was trying to explain that to him. And he's so Steelers Brunch with Tony coming up on Saturday. Then you have my insane ramblings, and that's going to be Tales from 2 a.m. Now, I've talked about my family. I have talked about, favorite games. There's so many different things that I've talked about on the show. This week, it's nice to meet you, but sign my crap.
Yeah.
And the reason it's called that is I'm going to be talking about tales of Steelers that I've met, and I've met a lot over the years, and how we need to treat them when you meet them like people. Don't tell them how much they've killed your fantasy team. They don't want to hear that. So that's going to be the crux of the show. On Monday, it's going to be bad once again with my good friend Tony, and we're going to be doing Steelers Q&A. Tuesday on the AM show, it's going to be the Steelers Retro Show, which we talked about earlier, and the Houston game from 1989. But before that, the new flagship morning show, Let's Ride.
That's right.
We'll be back it's going to be back tomorrow, by the way. I failed to mention that.
Yeah.
Tomorrow morning, and then Monday, Wednesday, and Friday next week, you're going to be doing your AM show on Thursdays. It's the Stat Geek, which I think is a perfect spot.
I've already got an email
for it. And the Scobro show on Tuesday nights before we get to Jeffrey and Michael and Beck in Black. And we might have to change that name because it confuses Michael. Michael has trouble with Beck in Black. And it's a takeoff on the AC/DC song, Beck in Black. So,
I just realized I got an email during the show from Captain Underpants, who was in the live chat, to ask me a Stat Geek question. I love it. That's great. You guys are the best.
So and Javman and other people are asking for the after party.
Javman threw it up there about 3 times.
Yeah, so there will be more.
We got to talk to one Jefferson Bartholomew Hartman to see about, maybe we'll have to run a little bit shorter show one Thursday and just bring an after party back just for old time's sake. Let's see about that.
But hey, we cannot do these shows without all of you in this live chat, all of you downloading our shows, all of you supporting us, telling your friends about it, ringing that bell to get your notifications. So we love you. We cherish you. So thank you so much, Dave, to these people.
Yeah, well, you also got to make sure that you're coming to BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. It really is your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. We are bringing you, oh my goodness, it's generally about 12 articles a day. And don't be surprised to see that ramped up big time come Monday, because Monday for us, that's what we're looking at as our official kickoff to training camp. When the Steelers are out there in pads, doing the drills, not held back with any restrictions or anything, there it'll be. So make sure you're checking in there for all kinds of great stuff. You talked about Tony Defeo. Man, he had a great article today that says, you know what? I'm just going to throw out a bunch of stuff to get people riled up. Here it is. It's the number one. It's the top article on our site right now. If you go to BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, it's right there. Lots of great stuff in there for that one. So Javman wants to know my email.
I'm writing it in.
Okay, because it's right there. No, Brian's going to write something ridiculous.
I just put same as Gmail, but same as Twitter.
Same as my Twitter, but add gmail.com on there. It's on the screen. STLR Superfan Dad at gmail.com. If you go to BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, click on any article that I'm the author of, and boom, it's right there. You can email me through that. And just make sure you're checking it out. So, Brian, it was a lot of fun tonight. Anything else you got to say?
No, we had a great time. Can't wait to have Jeff back next week.
Yes.
But so much to check out on BTSC, whether it's the family of podcasts, whether it's on the editorial side. But please check us out and, keep being a part of the family.
Yeah. And maybe this should be our sign off. As Mark Davison says, see you, mates. Make sure you like the show and subscribe. We'll see everybody next time.